So Nightmares are issuing from Games Workshop this week with the oncoming Night Lords and Mandrakes. There's rather snazzy new plastic heresy kits that could kit bash some pretty awesome Blade Guard in my opinion. And let's take a look at the latest 40k Metawatch. Time for an overview of the news and reveals for Warhammer 40k. Hello and welcome back to Horseback's Tactics, where today I thought I'd do a video talking about Kill Team Nightmare with an overview of prices, releases and models, and then talk through just a couple of other really quite interesting things for Games Workshop over the past week. The release of the Horus Heresy Legion Command, which I think has some interesting potential, and their Metawatch video with a whole load of design discussion. First up, let's focus on the big box release for the 41st Millennium this week with Kill Team Nightmare. This one has been really long awaited at this point. They announced the Night Lords in December and then the Mandrakes, I believe it was, at the LVO. It was maybe a bit surprising that this has been released all the way to April. I don't know if they've got some sort of other logistics distribution type issue going on with it, or they've been arbitrarily moving sales around to fit in different financial quarters. Games Workshop definitely keep the releases coming, some a lot faster than we might expect, some like this one quite a bit slower. In the box set there's 10 Drukhari Mandrakes, which we'll take a look at in detail in just a second. As with the Night Lords, Legionaries with basically a rather cool Night Lord upgrade sprue that's gone down really well with people, plus a big bit of Warhammer 40k factory type terrain, a Genitorum hub terrain piece, presumably to empower your drill rigs and things in the water planet. The likely price of this should be £80, €105 or $130. That will be based on Kill Team Salvation. Not impossible that it could vary a little bit from that. I'd guess that if anything it might be a bit more rather than a bit less, but it seems that odds on this will be the price at this point. It does feel like a very equivalent kit with 2 squads of 10 plus a terrain piece. Compared with their 9th edition Kill Team offerings, I think it's handy enough for people who just want one of the 2 big squads. The previous Kill Team boxes got packaged with really quite a lot of terrain, which is handy enough if you happen to want those specific bits, but less so if you just wanted to get your hands on one of the squads. I think it's not the worst decision in the world to sell them separately. If you're just interested in the miniatures in the box, then you don't really have a value saving on those particularly. It roughly equates to buy the 2 squads of 10 and essentially get that terrain piece plus all of the Kill Team's paper and rule offerings for free more or less. I feel like having a little bit of extra Warhammer 40k scatter terrain is far from the worst thing in the world. This one will be coming to pre-order on Saturday the 6th of April, so the full launch date will be on the 20th of April. And if they go by their normal Kill Team pattern, I'd expect the individual releases for the model kits to maybe follow like 2 to 3 months after the big box release. So unfortunately, if you've got no way to split the kit with someone or sell off the other miniatures and you just wanted one of them but not the others, there still might be a wait to come. If you were looking to pick this up, it might well be worth checking the discount retailers first. I've got 4 ones that help support Auspex Tactics, links down in the video description for the UK, Australia, Canada and the USA. Supply of the Kill Team box sets has often been generally quite poor in the past, unfortunately. If you do absolutely want this, it's worth getting there fairly early for these sites, and then if there's none, then go to the Games Workshop web store. Launch dates differ around the world. I believe out of these, Element Games is 10 AM UK time. I believe it's usually around 10 AM for Gap Games in Australia as well, unless these happen to have been delayed down under again. I couldn't see any mention of it on the Warhammer Sunday preview article. All of those can help save a little bit of money versus Games Workshop prices, and also help support Auspex Tactics as well. For those of you over in the USA, I thought it was worth mentioning that Wargame Portal does have an interest list that's live now. The way that works is that you can put your name down to reserve copies of them should Games Workshop provide enough of them. Then on Saturday apparently you get a day's worth of time to pay for them, so it's not just literally a game of fastest finger first on trying to get a discounted copy. I'll leave a link down to that in the video description, and then I believe they should have some more going live on their web store on midnight between Friday and Saturday Central Time. Again, the supply might depend on how many Games Workshop decides to produce and distribute. In any case though, taking a closer look at the models, I feel like the Mandrakes were really quite a nice addition for the Drukhari. Really good to see a new unit redone for them via Kill Team. I think that the Mandrakes were really quite a good choice for that. The shadowy warping Drukhari with their Balefire blasts and hack enemies apart with their glimmering steel blades. I think this plastic kit's really quite a nice upgrade compared with the old resin one that they had in the past. That one had some issues with some of the swords warping, plus was just kind of expensive, and then went out of production so you couldn't buy it even if you wanted to. It seems really nice to cover one more set in their roster, given that they've had it depleted quite a bit in recent years. and they are really quite a nice competitive unit for the army as well. Infiltrators to set up in the midfield, and then they can fade away to go back into reserve and jump out to do some secondary objectives or ball control things later. Otherwise though, and also really quite hotly anticipated, are the Night Lords kill team. These ones are basically Chaos Space Marine Legionaries with an added in Night Lords upgrade sprue. I feel like this one was really quite a good move by Games Workshop. Seems like one of the best ways that they can get some good value out of an add-in upgrade sprue, and also give some proper 40k representation to one of the Chaos Legions that really hasn't received enough attention in terms of model releases. The Night Lords fight in midnight clad, with shadowy armour, bat-winged faces, and often draped in flayed skin of their enemies, and there's really quite a lot of cool parts to represent that here. The nice curved lightning claws that almost look like Conrad Kerr's in miniature there on the bottom left. Also really quite nicely done winged helms that I feel like are a good balance between ostentatious and not being completely ridiculous like perhaps a couple in the past. And of course you can't really miss that banner with the poor flayed Space Marine hanging off it. Some luckless Astartes redone as a Night Lord's ornament decoration. Overall I think they're pretty fun and will probably be quite a popular kit. It'd be really cool to see Games Workshop do more legions in this sort of style. Just feels like the kit will give you really quite a lot of nice upgrades that you could scatter through the rest of an army and customize some other generic choices like other Space Marines in power armor. Will be interesting to see what the new Chaos Space Marine Codex has for the Night Lords. It sounds like there's going to be a Raptor Terror themed detachment out there, and that does seem like a good way to put them on the table. Otherwise, for interesting news and releases, we've got the Legion Command revealed for the Horus Heresy. This is a plastic kit that Games Workshop revealed on Thursday. I was kind of expecting this one to come at one of their reveal shows, given that it's perhaps a bit more interesting than a few of their character releases out there. This one had been on the Horus Heresy release timetable for a good long time now. It was one of the plastic releases billed for spring, and we did see the teaser silhouette image of the guy on the left with the banner in those silhouetted previews that they did around the turn of the new year. It seems that the way that they're going to be delivered is in the form of a new upgrades frame that you can either get separately or alongside one of the sets of tactical armor. The frame has the big banner on, the swords and shields, plus those rather cool plumed helmets, and a few other small adornments besides. I guess the sprue will be cheapest if you buy it on its own, and then you have to pay a bit more if you want the tactical marine bodies included in there, either the Mark 6 or Mark 3 armor, the ones that they've redone in more recent times for the Horus Heresy. Overall, I think reaction to these has been pretty good. Nice to see Space Marines with swords and shields. I think the cresthead helmets look really quite nice, a bit more fancy and ornate compared with your regular trooper, but not going overboard on so much bling that you couldn't tailor them towards your own legion or chapter if you wanted to use the parts for Warhammer 40k. They haven't said the pricing for the upgrade sprue. I'd guess that if you get it without the Space Marines, it'd be somewhere around £21 to £28 based on previous upgrade sprues from Games Workshop, equating to about $35 to $47 US. Here's a look at the actual contents of the entire sprue altogether. This one painted up in the Imperial 5th Bit Arrivals, the Iron Warriors. It did say in the description that you get more copies than just one power sword. Seems that you get 5 of those and 5 shields, plus the banner options, of which there are 2. Overall they seem nice enough and pretty good that they're plastic as opposed to resin. I think that will definitely make these a bit more popular. For 40k purposes, one thing that did strike me as interesting was that depending on the prices, they could be an interesting enough option for getting some cheaper blade guard for Warhammer 40k. Obviously with a different sort of look, the shields are a bit smaller and just overall the Marines are a bit more industrial looking rather than veterans with things like loincloths and more flowing robes and ornate detail, but the aesthetic might well appeal to some people. You could literally just use them as is if you don't mind the older armor patterns. Some people do like to economize on Space Marines by dipping into the Horus Heresy range from time to time, but I feel like even if you picked up the upgrade sprue and combined it with some of the cheapest Primaris Marine bodies that you could get your hands on, maybe Assault Intercessors or maybe super cheap Infernus Marines if you don't mind a bit of cutting and sticking with the arms, then overall I can't help but think that you're probably going to wind up at Blade Guard equivalents that are a good amount less than the slightly silly £12 or $20 per model that Games Workshop asks for them. Depending on the final prices, it could be possible that you could pay £80 for 2 of those upgrade sprues, plus £37 for Assault Intercessors, even if you can't find them anywhere cheaper. And between that you could make 9 Blade Guard plus an Ancient for like £80, as opposed to the £105 that you'd pay just for the Blade Guard, never mind getting an Ancient model as well. I feel like that's interesting enough. I'll hopefully aim to check back later once we actually know the prices and they've been announced for release. Another thing that I was vaguely interested in over the past week was the 40K Metawatch that Games Workshop published on Thursday, which sometimes I find interesting enough to make a video in reaction to if they've published some win rates and hints of what's to come, but unfortunately there was none of that this time round, and online reaction was maybe a bit disappointed as a result. Sometimes they do an article plus a video. This time it looked like it was just a video coming from Adepticon with some just general design talks about their thought processes for trying to make Warhammer 40k armies relevant against each other and help balance things both for a casual and competitive meta. I felt like the actual content was interesting enough really, just maybe didn't feel massively different to the sort of things that they've come out with before. Touching on a few of the usual topics like internal and external balance for armies, how frequently they try and update rules or do errata and things, and a few other bits and bobs relevant to the Adepticon tournament. The online reactions and discussion I saw around the article weren't enormously positive, they weren't hugely negative either. I think the most common reaction were people being just a bit disappointed they didn't share some win rate graphs for armies in 40k. Always interesting to see Games Workshop's take on those figures, and it feels like we're kind of due one at this point given that we're a good 2 months since the last balanced data slate. And by this time I don't think there's any excuse that there's not enough data out there, it's just they've chosen to keep that in reserve for a future one it would seem. Despite a big 30-minute video without any attached article, there also weren't any even sort of soft hints or teasers as to what they might do next in Warhammer 40k balance, even if there are some really obvious things that they're probably going to look at. Though I can't help but think that there's things that they've probably already locked in at this point. For example, I'd be amazed if they don't do something to Necron Catan given how strong they are for the strongest faction in the game. But I guess we'll have to wait for any future hints or teasers till a later date. The 40k comments did maybe feel just a little bit on the self-congratulatory side as well. That was something else I saw mentioned in a fair few comments. I feel like it's not entirely unjustified really. The 40k meta and balance is about as good as it's ever been in the past right now. The majority of 40k armies do have the chance to win against the majority of others, and that's definitely not been a position that we've been in all the time. And both at casual and competitive play, I'd certainly argue that player skill is more important a thing than choice of faction these days. I think they're not unjustified to be at least fairly pleased with themselves. It could still rankle with some people whose specific factions or collections might not be doing that well for one reason or another. There's still some stuff that's notably weaker than the rest, or maybe just left with one kind of specific or somewhat boring way to play. Maybe the one that was most pointed out as a counterpoint is the Adeptus Mechanicus, who are both kind of weak in game at the moment, and also some of their strongest ways of play tend to be a lot more about lots and lots of units on the board doing all sorts of chaff board control. Even if there were only one army that was problematic, which I don't think is quite the case at the moment, it'd still be annoying for people who collect that faction to hear a whole load of good things about Warhammer 40k if that's just not their experience. In any case, hopefully the next one they do they might have a bit more of substance to say. Will be interesting to see if there's any other hints of points or things. I'd not be too surprised if the next points update though is somewhat light touch, maybe before a bigger one in summer, perhaps with a new mission deck. Looked into the future and that looks like it's one of the 4 confirmed Warhammer 40k releases for spring that's now officially launching. We've still got Adeptus Custodians and Orcs with their Battle Forces and Codex, which I'm going to guess will drop on the same weekend, a Towerfall release with all the new Kroot kits individually, and then the Chaos Space Marine release with their 2 new Battle Force box sets. All of those were previously billed for spring. I'd guess that means that they'll all be sometime within the next 10 weeks or so should be a fair amount of 40k stuff coming. With Games Workshop, who knows whether it'll be sooner or later though. After that for summer, we've got Genestealer Cult, Sisters of Battle and the Mystery Codex, which might well be Agents of Imperium given those leaked pages. Finally, given 40k releases, I thought I might just quickly mention the channel giveaway for April, which is going into its last 24 hours or so now. If you want to be entered in with the chance to win either the new Custodes, Auric Champions box set, or the Orc Stomper Boys one, you've got around about 24 hours or so after this video goes live. There'll be 6 winners for this one, able to choose the one that you like, and I'll just order them in proportion to which ones people want. And as ever with the channel giveaways, there's 2 equal ways to enter. Either support the channel on Patreon for any amount and help me keep these videos coming each month, that gets you automatic entry to each and every giveaway. Otherwise, you can enter by supporting the channel on social media completely for free, subscribe to the YouTube channel and like the Facebook page, and then to actually enter the draw, a Facebook post appears on the 1st of April, midnight UK time, so around about 3 hours or so after the video goes live. Respond to that post on the Facebook page with a photo of any 40k mini or imagery, along with your name and the date, handwritten within the same photo. That last bit is just to deter Facebook bots and spammers and ensure that prizes go to real hobbyists. The draw is then done with a random number generator and announced on the channel update video on YouTube around the 4th of April. Everyone getting one equal chance to enter, whether entering via Patreon or Facebook. In any case, feel free to check those out, links down in the video description if you're interested, and there will be further giveaways each and every month, the next one being for both of the Chaos Space Marine Battle Forces in May, 3 winners for that, and with the exact same entry conditions. In any case, let me know what you think of the 40k news, Kill Team Nightmare, the Heresy Command Squad, and the latest Metawatch. Look forward to hearing your takes down in the comments. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see more like this. I do tend to post 40k content just about every day. Finally, if you have been enjoying all the videos on the channel, I would just like to mention that Auspex Tactics does have a Patreon page as well, and you can find that linked in the video description if you'd like to help support and keep these coming. Channel patrons do get a fair few advantages, seeing certain videos early, regular votes to see what sort of things come next on the channel, and automatic entry into the regular prize giveaways with a chance to win some big model kits each month. If any of that sounds good to you, or you'd just like to help support, the link is down in the video description. In any case, a massive thank you for listening, and I'll hope to see you guys next time.